The ventilation shaft was colder than Danny Morris expected. He squeezed through the narrow passage, his flashlight cutting through the darkness ahead. His mother had told him to stay in their quarters while she worked, but 14 years of life had taught him that rules were just suggestions when you were bored enough. Detention Station Omega-7 was the worst place his mother had ever been assigned. It orbited a dying red star that cast everything in blood-colored light. The station held criminals from across 6 different alien species, all locked away where nobody would ever find them. But Danny had found something in the old maintenance logs that made his skin prickle with curiosity. Level -12, special containment, authorized personnel only. His sneakers touched metal grating as he dropped down into a corridor. The walls here were different from the upper levels. Older, scarred with burns and deep scratches that looked like claw marks. Warning signs covered every surface, written in languages he recognized and dozens he did not. The symbols all showed the same thing, though. Danger, death, keep away. Danny should have turned back. He knew that. But loneliness did strange things to common sense, and he had not spoken to another kid in 3 months. His mother was always busy studying alien microorganisms or writing reports. The guards ignored him. He was invisible here, and invisible people got curious about forbidden places. The corridor ended at a massive door, half open like a broken jaw. Beyond it lay darkness so complete his flashlight seemed to die a few feet in. Danny hesitated, his hand on the doorframe. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell like hot metal and ash. Something was breathing in there. Something big. He stepped through. The cavern was enormous. His light could not find the ceiling or the far walls. But in the center he found what had been hidden below the prison station for who knew how long. Chains. Massive chains that glowed with blue energy, stretching from floor to walls to ceiling. And caught in those chains was a creature from nightmares and ancient stories, a dragon. It was bigger than any ship Danny had ever seen. Its scales, once probably bright, had dulled to the color of old ashes. The wings were tattered, torn in places where it had clearly tried to break free. Energy pulsed through the chains, and where they touched the dragon's body, the scales were burned black. The creature's head hung low, eyes closed, breathing slow and heavy like each breath took effort. Danny forgot to breathe himself. Dragons were not supposed to be real. They were stories, myths that every species seemed to have in some form. But here one was, chained and broken and very, very real. Those eyes opened. They were like looking into a furnace, orange and gold with vertical slits for pupils. They focused on Danny with an intelligence that froze him in place. This was not an animal. This was a person, aware and thinking and judging him in that moment. The dragon's lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth as long as Danny's arm. Danny expected it to roar, to lunge against the chains, to do something violent, but the dragon just watched him. Seconds stretched into minutes. The boy and the dragon, both trapped in their own ways on this forgotten station at the edge of nowhere. Finally, the dragon closed its eyes again and turned its head away, dismissive. As if Danny was not even worth the energy of hatred. Something about that gesture hurt more than fear. Danny had seen that look before in mirrors when he felt invisible. The dragon was not seeing him as a threat. It was not seeing him at all. "I'm sorry," Danny whispered. His voice echoed in the vast space. The dragon's eye opened slightly, a sliver of burning gold watching him again. But it said nothing. Maybe it could not speak. Maybe it had no reason to. Danny should have left then. Gone back to his quarters, forgotten what he had seen. Let the creature remain another secret of the station. But he thought about being chained, unable to fly, unable to move, unable to do anything but hang there, while the universe forgot you existed. He thought about what that might feel like. Without really deciding to, Danny sat down on the cold floor, far enough away that the dragon would not feel threatened, but close enough that he was present. He pulled his knees up to his chest and wrapped his arms around them. The silence pressed down on both of them. His grandmother used to say that silence was just waiting for the right song. She had taught him dozens of old songs, from before the colony ships left Earth, from times when humans still fought each other instead of exploring the stars. After her stroke, when words became impossible, she had hummed those melodies to him. Music had been their language when nothing else worked. Danny started humming without thinking about it. Just a simple tune, one his grandmother had loved. Something about rivers and going away and coming home. The notes carried across the cavern, soft and small in that huge space. The dragon's breathing changed, just slightly. A pause in the rhythm. Danny kept humming, eyes closed now, remembering his grandmother's hands and how she would pat his shoulder in time with the music. He did not notice when he started adding words. Quiet words about Shenandoah and rolling waters and being far away. When he finally stopped and opened his eyes, the dragon was watching him again. But something had changed in that burning gaze. The dismissiveness was gone. Now there was confusion there and maybe something else, something that looked almost like pain that had nothing to do with chains. Danny stood up slowly. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "If that's okay." The dragon said nothing. But it did not look away as Danny walked back toward the door. And that felt like permission enough. In the darkness of special containment long after the boy had gone, the dragon called Ashfire by the galaxy opened its mouth and made a sound it had not made in decades. Not quite a growl, not quite a sigh. Something caught between remembering and trying very hard to forget. 3 days had passed since Danny found the dragon, and he had gone back every single one. His mother thought he was exploring the recreation levels or reading in the library. The guards had stopped paying attention to him weeks ago. Nobody tracked one quiet human kid on a station full of dangerous criminals. Danny had learned to move through the station like a ghost. He memorized patrol schedules and camera blind spots. Getting to level -12 became routine, almost easy. The hard part was leaving. Today he brought something different. Water. The dragon had a pool in the far corner of its prison, but the chains kept it from reaching that far. Danny had watched it stare at that water yesterday with something that looked like thirst and resignation mixed together. "Hey," Danny called out as he entered the cavern. His voice did not echo as badly now that he was used to the space. "I brought something." The dragon's head turned toward him. Over the past 3 days, those movements had become less aggressive, more curious. The creature no longer showed its teeth when Danny appeared. That felt like progress, even if they had not spoken a word to each other. Danny approached carefully, carrying the water container he had stolen from the station's emergency supplies. It was heavy, meant for firefighting, but he managed to drag it closer to where the chains would allow the dragon to reach. He opened the valve and water splashed onto the cavern floor, pooling near the dragon's front claws. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the dragon lowered its massive head and drank. The sound of it drinking was strange, like wind through caves or distant thunder. It drank for a full minute before raising its head again and looking at Danny with those burning eyes. "You're welcome," Danny said, even though the dragon had not thanked him. He sat down in his usual spot, far enough for safety but close enough for company, and pulled out his datapad. He had spent last night reading everything he could find about the station's history. Most of it was boring inventory logs and maintenance reports, but buried in the old files he found something that made his chest tight. Star dragons, that was what they were called. Creatures who could fly between solar systems without ships, who breathed in the radiation of stars and sang in frequencies that bent space itself. 300 years ago, there had been hundreds of them. Now, according to every database he could access, there were none. They were extinct except they were not. One remained right here, chained in the dark. "Your name is Ashfire," Danny said quietly. "At least that's what the records call you. Is that right?" The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly. Then for the first time it spoke. The voice was like grinding stone and distant avalanches, rough from disuse but unmistakably intelligent. "That is the name they gave me when they put me in chains." Danny's breath caught. He had hoped the dragon could speak, but hearing it was different. Real. "What's your real name? Names are for those who have freedom to claim them." The dragon shifted, chains clinking and sparking where they rubbed against scales. "Why do you return, small human? Have you come to mock the last of my kind? To study the caged beast?" "No," Danny said quickly. "I just thought you might be lonely." The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. "Lonely, yes, I am lonely. I have been lonely for 3 centuries while your entire species learned to walk among the stars. I have been lonely while 47 guards and scientists and curious fools came to see the monster and died for their curiosity. I have been lonely while the galaxy forgot star dragons ever existed. What is your loneliness compared to mine, child?" Danny absorbed that. 47 dead. This creature could kill him without effort, chains or not. He should run. Every survival instinct he had screamed at him to leave and never come back. Instead, he said, "My grandmother died 2 years ago. She was the only person who really talked to me. My mom, she tries, but work always comes first. And we move every few months for her research, so I never make friends. It's not 3 centuries, but I know what it feels like when nobody really sees you anymore. The dragon was quiet for a long time. Then it lowered its head to the floor, closer to Danny's level. Sing, it said. Like you did the first day. Why do you sing? My grandmother couldn't talk after her stroke. The words just stopped working in her brain. But she could still hum. So we learned to talk in music instead. It was our language in Starwing, the dragon said suddenly. What? My name before chains. Before betrayal. I was called Starwing. The dragon's eyes closed briefly. We sang too, my kind. We sang the songs of solar winds and nebula births. We sang to guide asteroids in calm magnetic storms. The universe spoke to us and we answered. Do you know what silence sounds like when you are built to hear the cosmos? Danny shook his head, throat tight. It sounds like death, Starwing whispered. These chains do not just bind my body. They silence my ability to hear the stars. For 300 years I have heard nothing but my own rage and the hum of these cursed restraints. I'm sorry, Danny said, and meant it with everything he had. Why? Starwing's eyes opened again. You did not chain me. Your species did not hunt mine to extinction. Humans arrived in the galaxy after we were already gone. You have no guilt in this. Maybe not, Danny agreed. But I'm still sorry it happened to you. Starwing studied him with those ancient eyes. You're strange, small human. 3 days you return. You bring water. You offer music and apology. You do not run when I speak of death. Why? Danny thought about it, really thought about it. Because everyone deserves at least one person who shows up. Even if everyone else forgot. Even if it's scary. You deserve that too. The dragon was silent for so long Danny thought maybe he had said the wrong thing. But then Starwing made a sound, low and rumbling, that might have been the beginning of a purr or the end of a growl. Sing, Danny Morris. Sing your grandmother's songs. Let me hear something other than silence and hatred, even if only for a moment. So Danny sang, and this time when he finished, Starwing hummed the melody back to him in a voice that shook dust from the cavern ceiling. Danny's mother found him in the archive room at 2 a.m. He was surrounded by data screens, his eyes red from reading, a cold cup of synthetic juice forgotten at his elbow. She stood in the doorway for a moment before speaking, and he knew from her expression that she knew where he had been going. How long have you been visiting it? Rebecca Morris asked quietly. A week. No point in lying now. You're not going to stop me, are you? She moved into the room and sat down across from him. Her face looked tired, the kind of tired that came from moral exhaustion rather than lack of sleep. I should. That creature is dangerous, Danny. It's killed people. People who came to herd it or study it like it was a thing. Danny said. He pulled up a file on the screen between them. Look at this. These chains feed on pain and rage. The more it fights, the stronger they get. It's designed to torture forever. Who wouldn't fight back against that? Rebecca looked at the file, her expression tightening. She had probably seen it before. Her job was to study the biological systems of the station, which included the dragon whether she wanted it to or not. What do you want me to say, Danny? That it's cruel, it is, but I can't change it. Nobody asked the xenobiologist for moral input. Why are you really here? Danny asked. On this station. They don't usually assign someone with your credentials to a prison. His mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled up another file, this one marked with red security tags. They're going to harvest it. The dragon. In 18 days, they're going to extract every bit of genetic material and energy from its body to fuel faster-than-light research. The procedure will kill it. Danny felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. You're here to make sure they can do it safely. I'm here to determine if it's survivable, she corrected. I concluded it wasn't. But Station Commander Vrel doesn't care about my recommendation. The Vryn Collective wants what Star Dragons had. They think they can recreate it in a laboratory. We have to stop them. How? Rebecca's voice was sharp with frustration. I'm one scientist with an opinion they're ignoring. You're a child. The Vryn run this station, and they've wanted this for 300 years. What can we possibly do? Danny looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw the same trapped expression he saw in Starwing's eyes. People in chains they could not break, bound by duty and powerlessness and the weight of impossible situations. I don't know yet, but Starwing deserves better than being murdered for parts. Starwing. Rebecca's eyebrows rose. It told you its name? We talk every day. It sings with me. Danny pulled up his own research files. Look, the chains weaken when it experiences peace instead of rage. That's in the original design specs. They built a prison that gets weaker if the prisoner finds hope. Doesn't that tell you something about the people who built it? Rebecca studied the files, her scientific mind clearly processing the information. If the chains weakened enough, could it escape? Maybe. But there's automated weapons everywhere. Even if it got free of the chains, the station's defenses would kill it before it reached open space. Danny rubbed his eyes. I think that's the point. Give it hope of escape, then murder that hope. Extra torture. God. Rebecca stood up and paced, hands in her hair. This is why I study bacteria. They're simple. They don't make you question everything about your species and your choices and your complicity and atrocity. Mom, she stopped and looked at him. Help me, please. You know more about this station than anyone. There has to be something we can do. Rebecca was quiet for a long time. Then she sat back down and started pulling up files. Okay, let's think this through. We can't overpower the Vryn. We can't shut down the station. We can't break the chains ourselves. But maybe we can buy time. They worked through the night, mother and son, building a plan that was probably doomed but felt necessary anyway. By the time the station's artificial dawn cycle began, they had something that might work. Maybe, if they were very lucky and very careful. Danny went to visit Starwing that afternoon, exhausted but determined. The dragon noticed immediately. You look troubled. Small friend. Starwing had started calling him that 3 days ago. Friend. The word had made Danny's chest warm in a way he did not quite understand. They're going to kill you, Danny said bluntly. In 18 days. To study your body and steal what made Star Dragons special. Starwing's eyes darkened, but the dragon did not seem surprised. I know, I heard them discussing it. They think I do not understand their language, but I learned it decades ago. There was little else to do but listen. We're going to try to stop it. We? My mom and me. She's going to request an extension. Say she needs more time to ensure the procedure works properly. Maybe buy us a few more weeks. And I'm going to keep coming here, keep singing, keep weakening these chains. If we can get them weak enough, maybe the station commander will see that keeping you alive is worth more than killing you. Starwing lowered its head until it was level with Danny. This close. He could feel the heat radiating from the dragon's scales, could see his reflection in those burning eyes. You risk much for a creature you barely know. Why? Because it's right, Danny said simply. And because you're my friend too. The dragon's expression was complex, layers of emotion that Danny could not fully read. Pain and hope and fear all mixed together. If this fails, if they proceed with their plan, I want you to promise me something. What? Do not watch. Do not come to see it happen. Remember me singing, not screaming. Danny's eyes burned with tears he refused to shed. It's not going to come to that. We're going to find a way. Optimism, Starwing said softly. That is very human of you. Very young. I hope you are right, Danny Morris. I hope your strange human optimism is stronger than 300 years of Vryn determination. Me too, Danny whispered. That night, he sang every song his grandmother had ever taught him, and Starwing harmonized with each one, filling the cavern with sound that made the chains flicker and dim like dying stars. Station Commander Vrel looked exactly like what he was, a predator in uniform. His species, the Vryn, resembled Earth's praying mantises, but larger and crueler. His compound eyes reflected light in a way that made Danny's skin crawl, and his mandibles clicked together when he was annoyed. Right now, they were clicking constantly. Your mother's request for an extension has been denied, Vrel said, standing over Danny in the station commander's office. And you have been banned from level -12 effective immediately. Guards are posted at every entrance. Danny kept his face neutral even though his heart was racing. Why? I wasn't hurting anything. You were fraternizing with a weapon of mass destruction, Vrel said. The translator made his voice sound like broken glass. The creature is property of the Vryn Collective. It is not a pet. It is not a friend. It is a resource to be utilized for the advancement of all species. It's a person, Danny said quietly, with a name and thoughts and feelings. It is what we say it is. Vrel leaned closer. Your species is new to the galactic community, child. You do not understand our history. Star dragons refused to share their gift of stellar travel. They hoarded their abilities while the rest of us struggled with slow ships and generation vessels. We asked for help. They refused. So we took what we needed. By killing almost all of them and torturing the last one, Vrel's mandible stopped clicking. Careful, human. Your mother's position here is not guaranteed. Accidents happen on prison stations. It was a clear threat. Danny felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp, but he forced it down. Getting himself or his mother kicked off the station would not help Starwing. When is it scheduled? The extraction. 5 days. And you will not be there to upset the creature beforehand. The last thing we need is for it to damage itself fighting the chains. Vrel turned away, dismissive. Go back to your quarters. Play your games. Forget about things that do not concern you. Danny left before he said something that would make things worse. His hands were shaking with helpless rage. 5 days, not 18. They had moved up the timeline, probably because Rebecca had asked for an extension and it made them suspicious. He found his mother in their quarters, sitting on her bunk with her head in her hands. She looked up when he entered and he could see she had been crying. They moved it up, Danny said. I know. I think I made it worse by asking for more time. She stood and pulled Danny into a hug. I'm sorry. I tried. We have to do something. There's nothing left to do. They have guards on every entrance to the lower levels. We can't get to it. Rebecca pulled back, holding his shoulders. Sometimes we can't save everyone, Danny. Sometimes the universe is just cruel and unfair and we have to live with it. But Danny could not live with it. He spent the rest of the day pacing their quarters, thinking, planning. There had to be a way. The ventilation shafts? No, too obvious now. The maintenance tunnels? Definitely monitored. The cargo access? Same problem. Unless. Danny pulled up the station schematics on his datapad. There, a waste disposal system that connected to the lower levels. It was marked as deactivated, too dangerous to use because it passed through areas with hull breaches. Nobody would think to guard it because nobody would be stupid enough to use it. That night, while his mother slept fitfully, Danny gathered supplies. A pressure suit, emergency oxygen, climbing gear, and his grandmother's old harmonica. He left a note for his mother, simple and direct. Gone to say goodbye. Don't follow. Love you. The waste disposal access was exactly as terrible as Danny expected. The shaft was narrow, cold, and smelled like chemicals and decay. His pressure suit protected him from the worst of it, but he could still feel the wrongness of the place. Twice he had to navigate around gaps where the tunnel had partially collapsed. Once his suit alarm went off when he passed through a section with dangerous radiation levels. But he kept moving because Starwing was worth it. It took 3 hours to reach the cavern from below. He emerged through a floor grate, exhausted and terrified and triumphant. Starwing's head snapped toward him immediately. Danny? The dragon's voice was shocked. How did you get past the guards? Waste disposal. Danny pulled off his helmet and breathed the cavern air, which somehow smelled better than recycled station atmosphere. They moved up the extraction. It's in 5 days, I know. I heard them preparing. Starwing's eyes were dimmer than usual, tired. You should not have come. If they find you here, there will be consequences. I don't care. Danny walked closer, dropping his gear. I came to say I'm sorry. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't save you. And I'm so sorry. Small friend. Starwing's voice was gentle. You gave me something I thought was lost forever. You gave me hope and companionship and proof that kindness still exists in this galaxy. Do not apologize for the evil of others. It's not fair. No. But fairness is a concept, not a law of nature. The dragon shifted, chains clinking. Would you sing for me? One last time? I want to remember something beautiful. Danny's vision blurred with tears, but he nodded. He pulled out the harmonica and began to play, a slow melody his grandmother called Shenandoah. The notes echoed through the cavern, sweet and sad and full of longing for home. Starwing listened, eyes closed, and when Danny reached the second verse, the dragon began to sing, not in human words, but in harmonies that seemed to come from somewhere beyond language. The sound made Danny's bones vibrate, made his teeth ache, made his heart feel too big for his chest. It was beautiful and alien and perfect. The chains flickered, then they sparked. Then impossibly, a section of chain near Starwing's shoulder went dark. Both of them stopped, staring at the dead chain. That has never happened before, Starwing whispered. In 300 years, the chains have never failed. Danny looked at the harmonica in his hand, then at the dragon, then at the chains. What if that's the answer? Not fighting them, not raging against them. What if music can break what torture only made stronger? It would take more than one song to break them all. Then we sing more than one song. Danny pulled out his data pad and called his mother. Mom, I need you to trust me, and I need you to do something crazy. Rebecca Morris stood before Station Commander Vrel with a proposal that could get her fired or worse. But she thought about Danny's voice on the comm, thought about a creature that had suffered for 3 centuries and decided some things were worth the risk. You're insane, Vrel said flatly. You want to demonstrate that the dragon can be controlled through emotional bonding? That is not science. It absolutely is science, Rebecca countered. She pulled up readings on her data pad. Look at these energy signatures. When my son sang with the creature, the chain matrix destabilized, not through force or rage, but through harmonic resonance. The chains are designed to feed on negative emotions. Positive ones create interference patterns. Interesting but irrelevant. We extract in 4 days. What if you could have a living, controlled star dragon instead of a dead one you're trying to reverse engineer? Rebecca pressed. Think about it, Commander. Every attempt to recreate their abilities has failed. Maybe you've been approaching it wrong. Maybe the key isn't in their biology but in their psychology. Vrel's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign he was actually considering it. You're suggesting the creature could be tamed like some animal? I'm suggesting the bond between my son and that dragon is worth studying before you destroy your only test subject. Rebecca kept her voice level, scientific. Give me 2 days. If I can't prove the dragon can be safely managed through the bond, you proceed as planned. If I can prove it, you have something far more valuable than corpse. The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, towering over Rebecca with his insectoid frame. 2 days. But there are conditions. The boy does not go alone into the chamber. Armed guards will be present at all times, and if at any point the creature shows aggression, we terminate the experiment and move directly to extraction. Understood? Understood. And Dr. Morris? If this fails, your career in xenobiology is over. No one will hire a scientist who wasted valuable research time on sentiment. Rebecca met his compound eyes without flinching. My son taught me something recently. Some things matter more than careers. 20 minutes later, she was back in the cavern with Danny. 6 Vryn guards and more monitoring equipment than she had ever used outside a laboratory. Starwing watched the proceedings with obvious suspicion. Chains pulled taut like the dragon was ready to fight. Easy, Danny said softly, approaching slowly. It's okay. We're trying to help. There are weapons pointed at my head, Starwing rumbled. Forgive me if I do not feel helped. I know, but this is our chance. If we can show them you're not just a weapon, that you can choose peace, maybe they'll let you live. Danny stopped at the usual spot, close but not threatening. Will you try, please? Starwing's eyes moved from Danny to Rebecca, to the guards and back. What would you have me do? Rebecca stepped forward, professional despite her racing heart. Commander Vrel will be watching through remote feeds. We need to demonstrate that the bond between you and Danny creates measurable changes in both your biology and the chain matrix. Basically, we need to prove friendship is real and documentable. You want me to perform like a trained pet. Starwing's voice was bitter. I want you to show them you're more than what they think you are. Danny said, Please, Starwing. I know it's not fair. I know you shouldn't have to prove you deserve to live, but this is the only chance we have. The dragon looked at Danny for a long time. Then slowly, it lowered its head in a gesture that might have been agreement or surrender or both. Very well. What do you need? Rebecca set up bioscanners on both Danny and Starwing, measuring heart rate, neural activity, and energy outputs. The chain monitors were already recording. She nodded to her son. Whenever you're ready. Danny pulled out his harmonica and began to play. The melody was simple at first, a basic scale, but it grew more complex as Starwing joined in. The dragon's voice wove around the harmonica notes, creating harmonies that should not have been possible between human instruments and alien vocal cords. Yet they worked, perfectly synchronized like they had been practicing for years instead of days. The monitors went crazy. Rebecca watched her screens with growing amazement. Danny's neural patterns showed decreased stress and increased oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Starwing's energy signature shifted from the sharp spikes of chronic pain to smoother waves. And the chains, those terrible chains, began to flicker and dim in rhythm with the music. Remarkable, she whispered, recording everything. They sang for 10 minutes, then 20, then 30. The guards grew less tense. One of them even lowered his weapon slightly, caught in the strange beauty of what he was witnessing. Rebecca understood. There was something primal about it, something that transcended species in history and political agendas. It was connection in its purest form. When they finally stopped, both Danny and Starwing were exhausted. But the dragon's scales looked brighter somehow, less dulled by captivity. And 3 sections of chain had gone completely dark. Rebecca immediately sent her findings to Commander Vrel with a simple message. This is reproducible and measurable. The bond is real. His response came 30 minutes later. Danny and Rebecca were sitting with Starwing, sharing water and comfortable silence, when Rebecca's datapad chimed. She read the message, then read it again to make sure she understood. Well, Danny asked nervously. He wants a public demonstration. Tomorrow. In front of the Vryn High Council and representatives from the other founding species. Rebecca's hands were shaking. If it works, they'll consider alternatives to extraction. If it doesn't work, or if Starwing shows any aggression, they proceed immediately. That's not much of a choice, Danny said. No, Starwing agreed. It is a test designed to fail. They will provoke me. They will try to make me react with violence to justify their decision. Then we don't give them what they want, Danny said firmly. He looked at Starwing with absolute trust in his young eyes. We show them something they've never seen before. We show them what friendship looks like even when the whole universe is watching and waiting for it to break. Starwing was quiet for a moment. Then the dragon did something it had not done in 3 centuries. It smiled, showing all those terrible teeth in an expression that was somehow gentle. You are either the bravest or the most foolish creature I have ever met, Danny Morris. Can't it be both? Yes, Starwing said softly. I suppose it can. The cavern had been transformed overnight. Lights blazed from every corner, cameras covered every angle, and a viewing platform had been constructed where representatives from 6 different species sat in judgment. Danny stood in the center of it all, feeling very small and very human and very aware that everything depended on the next hour. Starwing hung in chains that glowed brighter than usual, pumped full of extra power to prevent any chance of escape. The dragon's eyes found Danny across the space, and something passed between them. Trust, fear, determination. Everything they had built together in their stolen hours of song and conversation. Commander Vrel stepped forward, his voice amplified through the cavern. We gather today to witness an experiment. Dr. Rebecca Morris has proposed that the creature known as Ashfire can be controlled through emotional bonding with her offspring. If this is true, it presents valuable research opportunities. If false, we proceed with scheduled extraction. The creature's name is Starwing, Danny said loudly, surprising himself with his own courage. And we're not here to control anyone. We're here to show you that friendship is possible, even between species, even after everything that's happened. Murmurs rippled through the viewing platform. Vrel's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Semantics. Proceed with your demonstration. But before Danny could move, another Vryn stepped forward from the platform. This one was older, his carapace scarred and dulled with age. He moved with difficulty as if his joints pained him. Danny's mother stiffened beside him, and Danny knew immediately that this was not part of the plan. I am Counselor Shrix, the old Vryn announced. I was present at the original capture of this creature. I led the fleet that hunted the last of the star dragons. He moved closer to Starwing, and Danny saw the dragon's entire body tense. I know this beast well. I know its capacity for violence and destruction. 23 of my soldiers died in the capture. It is a weapon, nothing more. Then why haven't you destroyed it before now? Danny demanded. If it's just a weapon, why keep it alive for 300 years? Shrix turned his compound eyes to Danny. Because weapons are only useful if you can replicate them. We have tried and failed. Now we will take what we need. By murdering someone who only defended themselves when you attacked first. Danny felt his voice shaking but pushed forward anyway. You call Starwing a weapon, but you're the ones who came to their world, who killed hundreds during a peace ceremony, who chained the youngest one just to study how they scream. Who's really the monster here? The cavern went silent. Even the other species representatives looked uncomfortable. It was one thing to benefit from the Vryn's actions, another to have them stated so bluntly. Counselor Shrix took another step toward Starwing. You think pretty words and sentiment change what this creature is? Let me show you its true nature. Without warning, he pulled an energy prod from his robes and jabbed it into Starwing's exposed shoulder. The dragon roared, a sound that shook the cavern and made every person present cover their ears. The chains blazed with power as Starwing lunged against them, teeth snapping inches from the counselor's head. Alarms shrieked. Guards raised weapons. Stop! Danny ran forward, putting himself between the dragon and the guards. Don't shoot! Get away from it! Vrel shouted. It's too dangerous. But Danny stood his ground. He looked up at Starwing, at those burning eyes filled with 3 centuries of rage and pain and justified hatred. The dragon could kill him so easily. One snap of those massive jaws, one slash of those claws. It would be simple and quick, and no one would blame the creature for finally breaking. Instead, Danny began to sing. His voice was small and human and fragile compared to the roaring alarms and the dragon's labored breathing. But he sang anyway, the melody he and Starwing had practiced together, the one about rivers and home and longing for peace. His grandmother's favorite song. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Starwing's eyes focused on him. Really focused. Seeing past the rage to the boy standing there with absolute trust. The dragon's breathing slowed. The tension in its massive frame eased. And then, impossibly, Starwing began to sing back. The harmony was heartbreaking. The dragon's voice carried pain and sorrow and the tiniest thread of hope, weaving around Danny's melody like they were 2 parts of the same soul. The chains flickered. The alarm seemed distant. Every person in that cavern stood frozen, witnessing something that should not have been possible. When the song ended, Starwing lowered its head to Danny's level. The dragon's voice, when it spoke, was directed at Counselor Shrix but meant for everyone. You are right. I am capable of great violence. I could have killed this child a dozen times. I could have killed his mother when she came to study me. I could have killed every guard who has mocked me or hurt me or ignored my suffering, but I chose not to. Not because I am controlled or tamed or broken, because this one human child showed me that choosing peace is braver than choosing revenge. Starwing turned its gaze to Danny. You asked me once why I did not kill you on sight. The truth is, I saw something in you that I thought was extinct. Genuine kindness with no hidden motive. You wanted nothing from me except to ease loneliness. Yours and mine. That is not control. That is friendship. And friendship, true friendship, cannot be weaponized or studied or forced. It can only be given freely. Danny reached up and placed his small hand on Starwing's massive snout. The dragon's scales were warm under his palm, radiating heat like a living star. I don't want to control you. I never did. I just want you to have the chance to fly again. The silence in the cavern was absolute. Finally, a representative from the Kelith species, a floating being of crystalline structure, spoke. We have witnessed something unprecedented. The question is not whether the bond exists. Clearly it does. The question is what we do with this knowledge. More debate followed, heated and complex and full of political considerations Danny did not fully understand. But through it all, he stayed close to Starwing and the dragon stayed calm. They sang twice more during the discussions, and each time more chain sections went dark. Finally, as the station's artificial sun began to set, Commander Vrel returned with a decision. The Vryn Collective has agreed to a conditional release. The creature will be remanded to human custody. Earth has sanctuaries for dangerous megafauna. It will go there under observation. The boy and his mother will accompany it. Any sign of aggression or loss of control, and the extraction order will be reinstated immediately. It was not perfect. It was not freedom in the truest sense, but it was life and it was hope and it was a chance. Danny looked up at Starwing. What do you think? The dragon was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice that carried across the galaxy and the recordings that would be shared everywhere, Starwing said, I think, small friend, that I would like very much to see your Earth. And perhaps after 300 years of silence, I would like to learn what stars sound like again when heard through wings that remember how to fly. The chains fell away one by one, and Starwing stood on its own legs for the first time in 3 centuries. The dragon was weak, shaking, but standing, and Danny stood beside it, a boy and a dragon. Friendship forged in the darkest place imaginable and strong enough to change everything.